Hey there, this is Christy Martin with BrightSpiritRising.com. Thanks for watching. And today we're going to talk about spirit animals and death. So I had a subscriber ask me not too long ago, she said, a hawk came to me to die in my arms on the first day of 2019. Would you please make a video about the death of spirit animals? And I thought this was a fantastic topic because there are, we all die. Death is just part of life, and the spirit animals can help us to really understand death a little bit better, as well as help to weather that transition. Whether it's somebody that we love who is passing on, or when the time comes for us ourselves to pass over, they can help to smooth that transition. So I want to talk a little bit about different aspects of death and spirit animals, how they relate, how spirit animals relate to death. And first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about death itself. In nature, in our society, we think of death as the end, right? And it's scary. It's like, nothing else after that. But in nature, death is not that kind of linear ending that we think of it as sometimes. It's really more of a cyclical thing. It's all interconnected with everything else, and it's simply one more transition in a life cycle. Somebody told me recently, I was attending a presentation about herbalism, and the presenter was talking about the kingdom of fungi, right? And talking about just the amazing things, and that the fungal kingdom really is very connected with death because it it's one of these decay organisms, right? Most fungi will, or at least a lot of them, help things to decay, help things to decompose. They're sort of like this post-death, helping with that transition. And she was talking about when a salmon dies and washes up on the riverbank. They were doing research in the Pacific Northwest that they have found evidence, like chemical traces of the salmon, like 20 miles away through the forest. So what this is really telling me is when something dies in nature, well, everything's energy, right? So the physical body is embodied energy, and that energy it gets shared, it gets dissipated. But it gets shared. So the energy is power. So when, for this subscriber, if you're listening, when that hawk came to you, that hawk, came to die, and it was really a gift of power to you, because of that proximity. Anytime that we touch or have connection with something, we're sharing energy in some way. And that was a very, very significant sharing of energy there. It was a gift that hawk gave to you, some spiritual power at that time. So I would really encourage you to honor that happening, and to, maybe do some prayer and meditation, and gratitude, and thank the hawk, and then perhaps a meditation and feel into it. It's like, what was the gift to you? How are you going to use that energy that the hawk gave to you, upon its death, and to treat that with a lot of respect. So, if there is a death that happens, there will be some kind of transfer of energy, and to understand that and to use that in a positive way, and to be very respectful of it anytime there's a death. And this goes also for hunting. If you're hunting, and I personally am not necessarily against hunting, but as long as it's done respectfully. And I've got, where I live, it's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There's a lot of people that hunt to feed their families, and it's a serious form of sustenance for them. And there is a lot of respect, but I think even just like a lot, native peoples of all over the world they'll do vision quests and they'll pray before and during and after the hunt. And there's just a lot of respect involved because there's this understanding that there's this, this sharing of energy, there's a sacrifice, right? And that we too, when we die, we give of our energy. And I would love to see the practice, like the whole practice of what to do with the body after death. I would love to see that change in our society because, we've got this energy that part of the earth that we've taken into our bodies, and to be able to give that back in some way as nature intended for that to be given back and shared and reused, that would be a beautiful thing. So hopefully that will will start to happen in our society in a way that's safe. We'll see what the next century brings. Okay, so let's explore a few more aspects of death as pertains to spirit animals. Another one is this idea of transition or renewal. You have to die to the old in order to, many times in order to step into the new. And we see this in a lot of spirit animals that have these life cycles or something going on in their physiology that where they have to shed or transform, right? A butterfly being probably the most well known as moving from the caterpillar stage and really going into this chrysalis stage where it's like a little death. The caterpillar is no more. It has to dissipate, and it actually, just like a body decomposes, the body, the caterpillar, just kind of decomposes inside that chrysalis, and it comes together again as something completely new and beautiful and different, and kind of a higher resonance animal that it comes out. And so butterfly is this beautiful symbol of like resurrection, renewal, and the transition. So that's another kind of death related message from spirit animals, and butterfly in particular. I want to talk a little bit about like messages from beyond. We'll get to that in a bit, but I guess butterfly's not the only one. Like anything like dragonfly or even snake that sheds its skin, it has to kind of have that renewal aspect of it. And the snake does have this death connotation with the poison, right? The venom. And an animal like snake or scorpion can represent death in a way that's like, it can take you down. And sometimes there will be things that happen in our lives that just take us down. Like, we're in a car crash and we injure ourselves and we're just down for the count for a while. And that can really happen. But a lot of times, sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes that's what our ego needs for whatever reason, right? And no judgment, because sometimes it happens to people that just don't seem to deserve it. But whatever it was, something in their higher self decided it was time for them to experience this, right? And it can really initiate a huge transition and growth, right? So death is always sort of like the opposite side of growth and rebirth in nature. When I was a sophomore, I believe, in college, I took this class on the goddess, which was awesome. But I wrote this paper on goddesses of death. And, at that point in my life, I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But what really shocked me, what I did not expect, was almost every death goddess that I researched also was associated with birth. So death is really necessary. It has to happen in order to enable the next phase of growth, whether that is in nature, the next generation, or maybe the next lifetime in which we take the lessons from previous lifetimes and work forward from there, or whatever it is. It's not the end, it's really a new beginning. And purification is another one, because when there is a death, there's things clearing out. And this vulture is a really good animal, or any animal associated with decay and death. Purification has to happen when death happens, and there's this, there's all these processes that go along with that, and to accept that process. Vulture, I love the story that I heard when I was in Costa Rica about Vulture, the belief that Vulture was the animal that brought souls up to heaven, right? So if you've been in the past year or so, there's been a lot of purging, a lot of purification happening for a lot of people. It's hard, it's not easy, it's not always pleasant, but it's so necessary, and it it really helps to take us a little closer, to heaven, when we clear all that stuff out. We find maybe we can breathe easier afterwards. We can see more clearly whatever it is. All right. Coming back to that idea of spirit animals as messengers, it's not uncommon, like, for spirit animals to show up as like a message or reminder from those of people that we know that have passed. Butterfly, again, is one that is often associated with this aspect of death and spirit animals. In Japan, the butterfly is seen as a symbol of, like, a message from beyond, the spirits. Like, you might see the butterfly as a spirit of the departed. But it doesn't have to be a butterfly, especially if the person, the loved one who has passed, was connected with a particular animal. That animal may show up. Or, there's other animals that are associated with death. Owl is one that shows up. And I remember when I was a kid, I was maybe 13 years old, and my grandfather died, and my mother told me that she'd heard an owl hooting in the woods, and that she had that happen when her grandfather died, and that she really associated that with the death and sort of an announcement of the passing. Okay. And there's there's this tendency sometimes of people to fear death, and that's understandable, but it can sometimes get so that certain spirit animals may have negative connotations, that people fear them or feel that they're evil. Well, that's not really necessarily so. I see it as really helping us to connect with that whole death idea, which is scary, right? But it is part of the natural cycle, and the more that we sit with the concept of death and observe how nature deals with it, the easier it is for us to accept it and just work with it as just one more transition. And then finally, I just want to touch on our companion animals who have passed, because that's always a hard thing. But what I've noticed with companion animals is that they always come into our lives at the right time. Each one who comes into our lives, they've got a lesson to teach us, and they come in and they help us. And then, I really feel like they pass on when the time is right. And so when they have passed on, really thank them for what they've brought to us, and understand that they're still with us. They're still with us on the other side. And with I'm going to put a picture up here of myself with a dog named Pavlov, who was one of my companions for quite a while, and he really taught me a lot about unconditional love. And he and his companion Dee Dee came in to my life right about the time my kids were, very little, as babies, and even when I was pregnant with my first one. And they stayed with the family through some pretty tough times. And then when things started to shift, that was when they left, and new animals came in, and that was just a beautiful thing. And so I just want to encourage you, if you have had an animal that passed, really to honor and thank that animal and know that they're always with you. Pavlov has been, both Didi and Pavlov have come back to me in dreams many, many times. And it's always been this message of, oh, we're still here for you. All right. So there we go. I would love to hear your comments on this topic because it's not an easy topic. And so do leave your comments below. And if you have any additional insights that would help others, absolutely, please leave those in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, share for sure if you have somebody that you feel this could help. And if you'd like to subscribe, you know what to do. Hit that little bell and you'll get notifications of new videos as they get posted. And if you'd like a personal reading, I'm going to leave that link as well. All right, so have a lovely day and we'll catch you again soon.